Hi, Kevin.
Hey, Kino, how you doing?
Okay, yourself.
I'm doing great today, thank you.
I love when the show starts with smiles. I love the energy.
Oh, I gotta have a little bit of upness in you when you get to my age. Keep you going.
I think for all of us in the weird times we're living through in the world today.
Yes.
So, how's your
I'm
day
not
so
sure
far?
what your weather is like there, but here it's a little bit of cold and damp. So I don't know if you've got the opposite weather or what it's like in your area.
Um, yeah, recently we get like four seasons in one day. Like the day started off with the sun, it was heated, chilling out. And then
Yep.
as it approached, I would say like 1, 2 p.m., then the clouds just started coming over. And then the same situation started to get cold and the rain came. So yeah, but at least like in the studio, at least it's warm. So
Yes.
that's good. That's good. Not sitting here and I'm like, I've
I
been
was a
through that
little
before.
chilled. We've had a lot of dampness here, and of course, a lot of snow on the ground. But
Yeah, yeah.
last night we had a weather front come through, and the wind was just howling. And I think we had 30, 40 mile an hour gusts.
Wow.
When I was out walking the dog this morning, I noticed a few limbs down in people's yards. But yeah, it kind of woke me up in the middle of the night. It was so loud.
Are we talking about Pal?
Pal, yes, yes. Yeah,
I love, with your bio at the bottom, you mentioned a bit more about Pal. So,
yeah.
yeah,
We
yeah.
we got Pal. Let's see, it'll be 2 years this September is when she was born, and we picked her up just before Thanksgiving of that year. And she's a mix, husky Malamute mix, and she's such a cute little puppy. Right now she goes 60 pounds, and there's a lot of fur on that body.
Husky is actually quite a good dog, eh?
Very smart, very
Yeah,
intelligent breed, but very active too. And I didn't realize at the time how active they would be. And they love to talk too, and that's kind of the
yeah, yeah.
allure for me. They love to talk. They also, I mean, just to look at them, they are majestic looking, and I always
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
one. And I'm not getting any younger. I'm approaching not too long now, 70. And I decided, hey, while I still got some energy about me, let's get the dog. And so we did. We picked it up. And wow, I mean, it requires a lot to take care of her.
Can you imagine? Well, you do have a lot of energy. I sort of picked it up, at the start of the show with any guests, and that, like, honestly lays like the blueprint for the rest of the show.
Yes.
Once the energy starts off good, like I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a good one. You know, when I
Well,
was in high school, I had a husky. It was also mixed with, it was a stiffy. So you're correct about the intelligence and how
oh,
connected they are to you. You know,
yes. Yes. Now, we have her in training class, and she loves to go. And then usually that day after she goes, and it's a 4 hour training class, she'll usually sleep a little bit after, but every evening, come around 6:30 time frame, she wants to grab her toy and she just wants to have fun and she wants to be right in your face and letting
yeah,
you
yeah,
know
yeah.
she's alive. So,
It's like a baby.
yes, yes.
Sleep throughout the day, then you get back, and now you tired and you want to rest, but they want to play.
You got it, Kino. That's exactly right. When I'm about ready to settle in for the evening with a cup of my favorite beverage, maybe watch a little TV or read a book, that's when she decides she wants some activity.
That's so cute. That's so cute. So you got a hold of the podcast via Russell Small,
Yes,
mentor to Russell.
Russell Little. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, Russell Little.
yeah, yeah. Russell is a
Russell
character,
Little.
boy.
Russell Little. Little Small. I'm sure you'll forgive me for that.
Yes, yeah. Well,
But he was
he's a
also a cool guy.
character.
Yeah,
He,
yeah,
he,
he's a cool guy.
He
Yeah,
really is. And I've been on the podcast with him and Amy. Amy does have her own podcast, and
yeah,
Russell
yeah,
created it like 9 years ago, and they had me on that, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed my time with them, and I mean, this is the one part, Kino, of being an author that I've really kind of found a lot of fun and exciting is the being on the different podcasts all around the
yeah,
world. I mean, yours now is based in Africa,
yeah.
and I've been on podcasts in Australia, England, Canada, several in the US. And it's just been a lot of fun. The different people you meet and the stories that you are allowed to share and that you also hear coming from the
Yeah,
host.
yeah.
It's just a lot of fun. I really enjoy it.
It is. Yeah, I mean, technology has done so much to connect the
Yes.
world. You
Yes.
know, it really has. And the thing about it also, like, even though I'm based in South Africa, like, the opportunities that have come my way also in my musical career on getting, that global reach, with
Yes.
people in countries that you would have never had a chance to, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. It's amazing,
Oh, it
like,
really is. And I grew up in a real small town. In fact, that's the subject of my first book. But what we found, and it kind of contrasts to today, is that we had a fairly diverse community, a lot of different nationalities, but we had a couple
yeah,
of common uniters, if you will: food and music. And you bring
yeah.
those two together and the people come out. We don't care who you are. We're just going to have a grand time. Sit back, enjoy some great food, some great conversation. And those were the real uniters. I'm thinking, in the way the world is today, we just have one big blowout bash and bring everyone together and have some fun.
Yeah, 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 100%, 100%. You know, the if majority of the global community would just, develop that mindset, the world will just be so much more united.
Yes.
You know,
But there is one thing that I got to say we'll have to remove from all of this. I'm a frustrated guitar player. I tried taking lessons. I can't get these old fingers to move. But I see these videos pop up of these 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 14-year-olds,
yeah,
and they're
yeah.
shredding the guitar. We have to remove them from the party. I don't want them.
Any specific reason why a guitar?
Um, I started playing back in high school a little bit, and I had a acoustic guitar back then. I also got a 12 string back, or not a 12 string, a regular. Oh, it's a 6 string, but it's the round curved back. I'm trying to think of the name of that style, but it was an acoustic, and I enjoyed playing. But I got to a point to where I almost like hitting the wall. I just couldn't get beyond it. So I put it down for many, many years. And now, being retired, I picked it back up. I was actually taking lessons for 4 years, and the instructor was phenomenal in what he could do. But he just couldn't translate that into my mind and body and hands and get it to move. So I've now put the guitar up for about the past year. But I just enjoy the different music the guitar can make.
Yeah, no, 100%. But maybe, you should just pick it up again. You never know, with that consistency, sometimes consistency can take years, just get
Yeah.
it back,
Yeah.
get it back. Yeah, like I should always use this example when I should coach independent artists. Like, if imagine yourself as a car, okay, and you park it in the garage and you don't start it for the next 2 years. When you do go to start it, of course, it's going to be dead,
Right.
So you just need to keep, like, starting all the time, no matter how hard it may be or you have difficulties. I mean, we've all been through it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But if
Yeah.
you're truly
I know I
passionate
should
about it,
probably do that and appreciate all the words of encouragement. It's just Right now, I'm more enjoying the writing and that kind of
Yeah,
outlet for my creativity. And I found I have to have a creative outlet. All the way through my career, um, the the bosses, if you will, well, do this, do this, do this. Well, I also wanted to do this over here because that was part of my creative outlet. Sometimes they
yeah,
liked it, sometimes they didn't. But I'm finding writing is that good creative outlet. I also enjoy cooking, just throwing different things together and tasting it. Yeah, that works great, fine. But it's another creative outlet for me.
yeah. A few weeks ago, I spoke to a coach on the podcast, and she was explaining to me about how we develop fantasies in our life.
Hmm.
So, for example, now I'm going to use you as an example, if you don't mind.
Go
So
ahead.
sometimes, we have this liking for a guitar, okay? But at the top, the macro of it, we have a liking for creativity. We have a liking for musical works. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I will be a guitarist.
Right.
I could like the sound, I could like how it's played. I also do enjoy it. I love watching other musicians, do their thing with the instruments. But I could have a liking for it, but doesn't necessarily mean that, what, I'm going to play the piano and I should keep trying. Maybe it's not my fit. So I just need to find what is my fit and what am I truly passionate about within the macro of the music industry. And
Hmm.
focus on that. Then you realize, okay, I'm good at that. Now, in your example, it was, okay, you know what, I came from a musical background. I never played for a while. I tried again, never worked. But now you've got writing, and now that's
Yes.
something you're passionate about. So possibly, where she would come in and say, okay, maybe the guitar was one of your fantasies. You can still be part of the creative game,
Gotcha.
but now in writing, that's your focus point. That's what you're good at. That's what you're passionate about. That's what's bringing out your best work. And I was like, that made so much sense to me because
Yes.
as I was going along my career, I wanted to do this and I wanted to do this, play the piano and, DJ and all of these things. But then I realized, okay, no, I'm not too good at that, but doesn't mean I should leave the music industry and go get, a boring job now. Let me look at what I'm good at. And that's when I
Yes.
thought, okay, cool. That's what led me into podcasting. That's what led me into music production. That that's what led me into writing, blogs and so on. I'm like, okay, you know what? I can still do something within the music industry. I don't have to do that specific thing. I don't have to be a pianist. I don't have to be a lyricist. I can write the
Yes.
lyrics. I don't have to sing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it made a lot of sense, and it's also a wake up call, like for a lot of like singer songwriters out there. You don't have to be in the front line. You don't have to be singing. No
Right.
matter me, if you're thinking, that's what I have to do. You can just be behind the scenes, writing the music, and get someone else to sing, and that's how the industry is built, or was
Yeah.
built, and continues to grow that manner.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
but so
You got to have some kind of an outlet, and all of those things that you mentioned, Kino. I kind of view them as stepping stones, and you can learn different things from it. With the guitar, you do have to practice all the time. You have to be patient. You have to understand the mechanics behind it. Um, as long as you can utilize that and continue to grow, fantastic. My struggle with the guitar was not that I couldn't grow. I just can't get this old body, and there's not a whole lot I'm going to do at this age to get this old body to move faster and
yes,
to
yes,
actually stretch. I mean, you can see my hand here. It's kind of on the it's normal hand, but it's not able to stretch like some of the guitarists can stretch and go 5, 6 frets in their
yeah.
stretch. And I'm struggling with 3 or 4 frets, and the B minor is a killer for me. So that kind of a struggle. So, but I find if I got a pencil and paper or a keyboard, I can write, and that's not
Yeah,
such a
yeah.
struggle.
Yeah. No, I get you. I get you. That makes so much sense to me. Out of curiosity, what's your favorite genre when it comes to music?
I love the 70s rock. That was my era.
I thought as much.
Uh,
Yeah,
the Beatles, AC/DC, Leonard
yeah, yeah,
Skinner,
yeah,
Chicago, Fleetwood Mac. I mean, you can go on and on and on. They were in, not only inspirational for a number of them, but it was kind of like when they took, to me, music and went, here was music, and now we're going to go like this with it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
they stretched it in various ways, but yet it still had the rhythm, the beat, it had the melody, it had the lyrics that made, to me, made a lot of sense and spoke of the time frame and the different feelings people had. And I think a lot of that today it's just not there.
yeah,
I
yeah.
can't listen to a lot of today's music. I really can't. But
That was going to
that's
actually be
my
my
era.
follow-up.
Pardon?
Yeah, yeah, no, that was going to be my follow-up, the comparison, of AC/DC, those days compared to, modern rock
Yes.
groups, guitarists, there is a huge difference. And just as you said, how difficult it can be to actually master the guitar, you have to think about, okay, how technology has evolved over the years. Even though it's still harder in 2025, but it's also much more easier in certain ways. When you look at the 70s, it was all natural. That's all
Yeah.
they had,
Yeah.
you know. They get into a studio, it was connected, and you have to do your thing. I mean, now you can go into the studio, you can have a bad set, but with the technology available, you can make it awesome to put it on a
Oh,
record.
absolutely. I mean, if you have a little bit of a clinker on the guitar hitting a note, they can smooth it out with the
Yeah,
technologies today. It's
yeah,
just amazing. But and I'll give you another quick example of why I liked it back then. During high school, we had a lot of dances, and we had live bands, local bands, and today it's all, either a DJ up there or they got somebody's music list and they're playing it across the speaker.
yeah,
I mean, that's not representative of the time I grew up in and the love I had for music at that time. And
yeah,
to see some of it today, I don't know if the kids really understand the genres of music, the history behind it, the feelings that you could get. I mean, you could be having the worst day in the world back then and sit down with a headset on and a little bit of music, and something, you felt a whole heck of a lot better.
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just not sure that happens today.
The culture is lost,
Yes.
and I feel
Yes.
it's lost globally. At first, I thought not, it was just South Africa. But then when you really looked at it, nah, it's lost globally. People don't know what it means anymore to, stand in front of a DJ or stand in front of a band and really get into and really disappear, to a different world. Now it's
Yes.
all about, I'm going to go out, I'm going to get wasted. I don't even
Yeah.
care who's playing,
Yeah.
I'm going to dance to anything because I'm wasted, you
Yep.
know? And I just felt like, nah, culture has just dropped. I mean, I'm a DJ myself, and I don't even go to these music festivals anymore because I am disgusted with it.
Yes.
It doesn't make sense to me. Like what you're talking about, like music needs to make sense. It doesn't make sense to me anymore. Like I'm
Yeah.
wasting money, right? And I'm going there, and I'm going to waste more money, and for what? You know, I recall there were a few, festivals that I used to go to, and I didn't even need to like touch alcohol. It was the music alone that put me on a high,
Yeah.
and that
Oh,
was enough for me.
absolutely.
Now those days are gone. I'm not even talking like a long time ago, like like it's not a long time ago. And
Well,
it's lost.
the biggest thing, Kino, that I've seen in the difference between the music of my era and today was back then. Even though we had the Vietnam War going on and that kind of background through the 60s and into the 70s, it was still music about love and peace and coming together. And
Yeah,
yeah, it was, maybe a ballad about your first love that broke your heart or something like that. Today, it seems like it's almost all about, like you mentioned, going out, getting wasted, and beating things up or stealing things or
Yeah, yeah,
whatever. It's more anarchy in the music
yeah,
than the peace and love of our time.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I just don't understand it. I think that's also added some to the divide of the world, if you will. But that's just not my specific thing to do, is listen to the music of today.
Yeah, yeah. It's all psychological, you know. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, is you have to go out, especially like in the hip hop industry. If you go and you put a record together that's going to influence or promote or endorse violence and being divided, and I'm fighting for this race and I'm fighting for this culture and for this religion, that's what's selling, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had an author yesterday from Canada, Matthew Hughes,
Okay.
and he was talking about like how billions of dollars are invested in research just to psychologically understand how the world is working. Now,
Yes.
once the powers of the world master that, now they bring it into branding, they bring it into advertising, they bring it onto TV, into Hollywood, in music, you know, and they're playing on your feelings. He made such
Yes.
a key point, and I was so amazed by it. Like, they are playing on your feelings, not thinking, feelings.
Yes.
You know, how
Yeah.
can I get you worked up? How can I get you worked up? And that's what's
Exactly.
selling their record deals. That's what's selling their merchandise. It's making them rich. And the rest of us, we divided. We fighting with each other,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
And I mean, there's a lot of, I'll call it conspiracy talk. And I just use that because that's what they call it
Yeah.
out there about a lot of this kind of thing. Are they purposely trying to divide us so that they can control us more and get us to fight each other while they go off and, rob from the
Yeah.
cookie jar unseen and unnoticed? I don't know. I just know there's a lot of it that we need to stop. And to me, I'm hoping that at least in the US now, that we can start to heal a little bit more. There's still a lot of division with our current president that's in there, but I believe they're shining the light. And this is just me talking. We're seeing the cockroaches run all over from that light. And that's what should happen. I mean, government should be accountable to us, the people.
Mm.
And that's what we're seeing. And we're seeing a lot of folks, in my opinion, that don't like that concept, that are complaining the loudest.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm trying to get the focus off from us as the people. Let us unite and put the focus more on where it needs to be. And that's on the folks who maybe have their hands in the cookie jar.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. I don't believe it's a conspiracy theory. It's divide and conquer.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it's not something new. You know, it's always
No.
been there throughout history. Divide and
Yes.
conquer. Play both ends
Yes.
of the stick. And what you said is correct. You know, start the feud. It's like create the problem, let them fight with each other, and then we're going to come with the solution. You know, as the
Yes.
saying goes. That's exactly what happens. I was actually sitting with a few friends yesterday, and we were laughing about this. You know, because the president here in South Africa, that's so funny because, you know, he'll come out and he'll give this comment, this controversial comment, okay, especially with what's going on between the US and South Africa now, you know, at the top, the macro. And they'll be like this, like, I don't get involved in politics at all. You know, I do my thing, you know, I'm here to
Mhm.
motivate, inspire, and just do my best for humanity. But we were laughing because, you know, he will give a comment and people will start feuding with each other. But the guy's not even in the country after that. And they don't
Yes.
even know. They don't
Yes.
even know he's not here. But you guys are fighting, you know?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
what's up, you know? So it was just jokes. It was just jokes. So before we get into your books and your creative works, background history about yourself, you know, where it all started, how did the creative journey start, you know? Like, you know, you mentioned a few things in between, you know, the musical background and so on, and I know the writing came
Mhm.
afterwards, but your life growing up and how did it all go for you? Like,
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I was from a small town in upstate New York. Its biggest claim to fame is if you've ever shot a Remington rifle or own a Remington rifle, that's the town where the Remington rifle was born, and the factory existed in there up until last year. A lot of political pressures came out from our state government to push them and finally push them right out of the state. They're still being manufactured, but they've been moved south where it's a little bit more accepting of that. And to that end, and I'll just make mention of it here, people keep saying we have a gun crisis in the US. There are, and I did a lot of research on this in the FBI's database, there are between 70 and 90,000 deaths on an annual basis due to guns. According to the FBI's data, 1.5 million potential crimes are stopped because of a good person with a gun. And they also go on to further state that that number may only even represent 50% of the total that are stopped because of those incidents that go unreported. But you know where we do have a crisis, Kino? Of that 70 to 90,000 gun deaths a year, again, FBI data, almost 71% is suicide. That's where we have a crisis, and we really need to help stop that. And a lot of it is current and ex-military folk, policemen, even doctors and lawyers. You know, we need to do more to help that. And that would take almost 71% of those numbers and crush them if we can stop that. And the next largest group, 18%, gang related. And that also needs to be attacked and be attacked at the grass level and go into these communities where we know it's happening. We can do this. We can take care of it. Between those two, almost 90% of those total gun deaths a year can be attacked. Our government officials know this. This is FBI data. This is not my data. They know these numbers, yet they keep wanting to take the guns away. And there's the last figures I saw, over 400 million guns in the US. You're not going to get them overnight. And it's going to take a long time. And I'll tell you, I own a gun, a BB gun. That's it. That's the only gun I have ever owned. You know, I'm fine with it. I use it for, you know, just target shooting, something to have a little bit of fun with. But that's my hometown. And I want to get off from that a little bit and get more into, I grew up in that small town, 10,000 people at its max. Beautiful town. Everybody knew everybody. You could walk the streets. Nobody bothered you. If you got into trouble, everybody knew you got into trouble. And your parents would tell you, when you go out of this house, you represent this family. So you better do what we tell you from a goodness perspective, a proud perspective. Help one another. But they also told us, you see those hedgerows between the two properties? Your nose ends at that hedgerow, meaning you did not stick your nose in another person's business. If they wanted to invite you in, or if somebody was yelling and got hurt, go help. But other than that, you keep your nose out of their business. And these were the messages I grew up with. At Christmas time in the town, the lights were strewn across the telephone wires and electrical wires down Main Street. We had Santa Claus arrive at the fire station. We had a little movie theater called the Capitol Movie Theater, where I went there and saw a movie at Christmas time. And when you exited out, they gave you a little box of ribbon candy. These are the memories I have until such time that little town was sold the promise of urban renewal by the government and wound up razing 113 buildings in the town, destroying the culture, in my opinion. I write about that in one chapter in my book. And that book is Ilion. It's the childhood time that I had then, and it tells my stories about growing up in that town. So at the time, being a little kid, I was kind of adventurous. I was always looking in different things and how did this work? How did that work? That was really my imagination at the time and what I did. I did okay in school, a typical student, couldn't play sports worth a darn. But I did enjoy a few gym classes where we had dodgeball and stuff like that, which they don't play today, at least not like we played it back then. But we had fun and we had neighborhood kids we could hang out with. Then the time came when my dad's job was transferred to another state. I was 13 years old, the summer of 13, when the family sat us down and said, look, we're moving to Minnesota. And so my teenage years, I started ninth grade in Minnesota, graduated out of Minnesota. In fact, the only one in a family of 6 children that actually graduated in the other state. All the other children graduated in my home state of New York. But that then led me to meet the woman who became my wife, and we're still married to this day, 49 years. And, that was really the subject of my second book on Rosemount, Minnesota, in my teenage years there. And, writing has kind of been a release, if you will, and almost describe it as cathartic in a way, where all of this kind of emotion and feeling just comes out onto the pages in your words. And I first started writing as a result of my grandkids asking me, what were you like as a kid, Grandpa? What was it like at that time? And they would ask this repeatedly. So I'm 62 and I'm sitting down at the kitchen table and I'm typing away, and came up with the stories that I would tell them. And then I finished it. I turned it around to my wife and I said, you've probably been wondering what I've been working on. Take a read. Well, it was just an 80-page short story, and that actually became my first little book, My Christmas in Rosemount. And let me tell you, when she was done, the tears were in her eyes. And I said, honey, I want to do something at Christmas time. I want to create this little book. It's just a short story, but I want to give it to them at Christmas. And so we rushed around. It's getting close. We rushed around. We found a local publisher that could do it and put it together, and we got it all set. And I think I picked it up the week of Christmas and wrapped it up and gave it to them at Christmas time. Well, the look on their face, they just loved it. And so that kind of started my writing career. And then, like I said, my first full book was Ilion, My Childhood, My Memories Growing Up in a Bygone Era. That was published in, let me see, I was 65, so 2022. And then my next book about Rosemount, I was writing along the same times. That published later that year. The first book, I pushed along.
You on a roll.
It was like it was all just coming out of me, Keto, and I just kept typing away. And the first book, I was able to get into my hometown library of Ilion, and that was, they finally received their copy in May of that year. January the following year, I'm getting an email from them. It became the #1 checked out book out of my hometown library. And
Nice.
Kino, You can take all the sales you want and all the royalties from that. That honor made more to me than any amount of money I've made
Yeah,
from the book.
yeah, yeah,
To have my hometown, the only way I can say it, honor me in such a way that they wanted to read my words. Wow, that is a tremendous feeling and a high. Like, when I got that, I was floating for, for a while off from that for sure. And then I did a book signing event back there, and the library held the book signing event. And what was interesting is I was able to reconnect with a high school teacher I had by the name of Joseph Kalia, and he was writing books. And I said, whoa, I got to reach out to this guy. And I did. And I talked to him, and he's writing books about the hometown, and I'm writing my story about that. Well, we did a book signing together back there. The library, I mean, was so complimentary afterwards. They said this was the largest attended book signing event that they had. We both looked at each other in amazement that people just kept coming in and
yeah,
asking questions and loving it. And that meant so much to me. And in fact, in my book, the first book on Ilion, I have a picture in the back of the book of me in second grade. Well, back then at picture day, they would take a class picture, not individual pictures for the grade schools. And I was in second grade. And so what the photographer did is have everyone bring their desks together. Well, my desk was going to be an outlier, so he had me go stand up next to the teacher. And the teacher's name was Mrs. Roberts. And so I stood up next to her, and the picture was taken. And I took that picture and I put it into the book. And during the book signing, I had a lady come up to me, and she was talking to me about the book and saying, I understand you have a picture of you in second grade in the book. I said, yeah. And I flipped to it. I knew the page, and I said, there's the picture, and there's me right there. And she pointed to the teacher and said, that's me right there. Oh, let
yeah,
me
yeah.
tell you, the reunion, I got up and gave her the biggest hug. I couldn't believe she would come. I mean, here was one of her students from second grade, now an author writing
Yeah,
about the
yeah.
hometown. And she felt enough about that and thought enough about that to come to it and come see me. It was just phenomenal. I really, truly enjoyed that time and to connect with the audience in that way.
You
So
kept,
those were my
yeah,
first two books.
yeah, you kept the memories alive, you kept the
Yes.
community alive, you kept the people alive, which really doesn't happen much, in this day and age. That sentimental value that we have, of that place where we grew up, where we started off. It's so important, it's so
Yes.
important, you brought it back, you put it on the map again. You probably
Yes.
made everyone who ever came from that town feel so alive again and proud of who they are, because that town is part of who they are.
Yes.
And over the years, it's just been forgotten. It can become depressing, you know. So you brought that back for them. And as you said, you can't put a price on that. You just
No,
can't.
you can't. And to me, that's almost like a grounding experience. It's where you started from. It's your
Yeah.
roots. And as you mentioned so correctly, it's culture. It's what we grew up with and what we know and what we remember. And to me, a lot of the memories from my childhood are so vivid, and I want to relive them. It was a simpler time, but it seemed like it was a more connected time, and just one that I want to really uh, kind of honor with my words in the book. And I've had people tell me that the way I write, it's almost atmospheric in a sense that they can visualize themselves and feel themselves right back there at that time frame. One passage that I remember where I'm writing about walking the streets at the wintertime close to Christmas and going to the stores. And as the plows would come down, they'd push all the slushy snow up against the curb. and you could hear the plop, plop, plop of the tires as they went down over it. And, you know, you look at the people walking, and back then we had the rubber boots that had the buckles in the front. And I described all of this, and the people just commented, I can visualize that. I'm right there with you.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
to me, when those words can touch them in that way, that is just a tremendous feeling. And to be honest with you, that's what I like to read in books. I like to read people's stories. I like to read how, you know, they were feeling at the time.
Yeah.
But that's just my writing. But Kino, I will say that was my first two books. My third book takes a hard twist right and gets into more spiritual, just due to a whole lot of experiences we and others have had. And as such, my third book is called Signs: The Veil is Thinner Than We Imagine. And it talks about how, if we're open to it, we can receive those communications from our loved ones that have passed on, but they're still there. I am a believer in the Almighty. We do not vanish. And in fact, the quote I like to say, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yeah. That's
When you
good.
think about that, it
Yeah,
totally changes your
that's good.
viewpoint and your mind. But
Yeah.
that's what my second book is about. And I've talked to folks or third book rather, I talked to folks for that book who were in the Twin Towers on 9/11 while it was collapsing down around them, and they made it out. I talked to a guy who was a complete addict, and at a very young age, but he was a functioning addict. He was drinking up to a gallon of liquor a day, and that doesn't include the drugs he was taking. And he goes on to get sober after seeing a vision. And now he's in the Guinness Book of World Records for growing the hottest peppers in the world.
Wow.
When you
Nice.
talk to these folks and you hear their story and you hear how they've gotten these messages, it's just wow. I mean, you cannot sit back and say that we go on to nothing, you know, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah.
No, there is that beyond. And I'm not welcoming the beyond for me anytime soon, but I'm not in fear of it at all.
And
So
that's the thing
that's
about so sorry, I just one so like that's the thing about spirituality, you know, once you go down that road and you go down that journey, you know, of finding yourself more and more, you are really not scared of death anymore.
yes.
You know,
Yes.
becomes like just one of those things that has to happen, but we shall continue,
Yeah. Yes.
you know.
Absolutely. And to me, it just goes on and on until you get your next task presented to you in the hereafter, and then you go on and do that, and we continue on and on. It's not ending.
Yeah. So like what are the signs for, or
They
you don't have to
come
give it
to
all,
Yeah,
but like
they come in various different ways. I mean, it could be everything from a dream you had to an
yeah.
experience in nature. We had an experience that happened in front of witnesses where we all kind of took a step back and looked and said, "What the heck? That was not there this morning." And
Yeah, yeah,
how did
yeah.
it get there? Give me another example with animals. There's Suzanne Summers, who you may or may not know. She was an actress and was in a sitcom called Three's Company. And she passed on, and her husband, name was Alan Hamill, I believe that's who it is, wasn't really too much of a believer, and this is his words, in the afterlife. And all of a sudden, he started getting little signs around the house, and just things where wait a second, that's not happening there. That wasn't in that position, blah, 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 things like that. And then one day he opens up the back door to leave. A hummingbird flies in. Hummingbird goes over through the kitchen, through the living room, finds a picture on some stand amongst others and lands on it. That was a picture of Suzanne Summers. And at that point in time, Alan started to put everything together and said, wait a minute, these are signs I've been receiving. And therefore, I know Suzanne is sending them to me. She's with me. So you can receive them that way. I've received signs through seeing various numbers, and I'm not really a believer in numerology or anything like that. This goes beyond that. There's something called angel numbers. I never knew anything about that until I started doing the research for the book. But I keep seeing the same set of numbers show up, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4. Why am I seeing this all the time? I mean, it's not a coincidence. They're happening. The week before I launched the signs book, I take my car to the garage just to have general maintenance done. I get the bill back. There's the tax, $12.34. I mean, why do I keep seeing this? So I looked it up after a while, and it just, if you look at it from the angel numbers perspective, it means you're on the right path. Keep going. The destination is in front of you. Very positive messaging coming across. So I take it that way. But there's other ways. Dreams. There's a thing called visitation dreams, where you have such a vivid dream of a past loved one coming to you that not only is it so real in the fact you see the person, you see their clothing, you even smell them the way they smelled back then. Everything is real, and you remember it months later. That's called a visitation dream. And what's interesting about those is a lot of people who are on their deathbeds will often have dreams of past relatives or other things, people, could even be animals, coming to them. My mom, when she passed away 5 years ago tomorrow, in fact, she would tell us that she had a dream of her second husband coming to her and saying, it's not quite your time yet, but get prepared. And my mother-in-law had similar things. There's a doctor here in Buffalo that I interviewed for the book, Dr. Christopher Kerr. He is a cardiologist by trade, but he became the CEO of hospice and palliative care in Buffalo. And he's chronicled over 1,500 dying people's experiences. And he's done TED Talks, he's written papers on this, etc. And without question, about 80% of them have these kinds of dreams to get them ready before they pass on. In Japan, they're not called visitation dreams, they're called pickup dreams. And this kind of thing transcends culture. It transcends time. It goes back. I looked in history of the Egyptians, the Romans. I went to the Norse, China cultures, in Japan, cultures of India, the American Indian. And how could all of these stories coming out be things that are nothing, be things that are just made up? There has to be some truth in there. And I'll give you one example of the Roman and the Roman Empire. They believed in dreams so much that they actually had oracles that would help you understand your dreams. And they had a law in the books that said, if you have a dream about the empire, regardless of good or bad, you must go to the nearest forum as quick as you can and tell everybody about the dream, because they believed there were some things in that dream. You were sent the message purposely, and there were things that they could utilize to help the empire.
Yeah.
So they had in Egypt the Book of Dreams as well as the Book of the Dead. And that Book of Dreams is now in a British museum. But there was so much believed about a lot of this. And one of the greatest, I won't say greatest, I don't want to use that word. One of the known psychologists or psychiatrists, Sigmund Freud, who was later kind of debunked, he kind of took a lot of the dreams into an area that I don't think they were meant to go. There was something bad about it. There was something sexual about it, and et cetera, et cetera. And that you needed to work as a person, as his patient, you needed to work through all of that. Sometimes dreams are just fun. And they're not meant to be anything but that. But other times they carry a message. And that's when people ask me, how do you know you're receiving a sign? I tell them, how did it make you feel? Did it make you feel something down to almost the core of your being? If that's the case, then you can almost bet it was a purposeful dream being sent to you. And that's kind of the way I described it. And I also described that as other signs. I had an experience with a hummingbird, and it got lodged in my garage. I finally was able to secure it and get it down by bringing the bristles of a broom up to it, and it stepped onto it. And as I brought it down, I took my finger up and it stepped onto my finger. I walked him out of the garage. He flew back in. I had to repeat the process. So the second time I walk him out, I go further out into the driveway. I'm holding him like this. We're looking eyeball to eyeball. And there was such calm, such serenity, such peace. And it was, just one of the greatest experiences that I have such a deep memory of. And then it flew off. And I'm thinking, all right, was that a sign sent to me to calm down, slow down, take a look around? And when I looked up the meaning of that kind of experience, come to find out hummingbirds have been said to be messengers from the afterlife for eons. And they even give credence down to the color of the wing of the hummingbird. The same as a cardinal. The cardinal has been treasured throughout many, many generations to say that when you see one after death, that's one of your dead relatives that might have just passed on coming to you to say everything is okay. And the American Indian believed in it so much that not only did they covet the feathers of an eagle, they coveted the feathers of the cardinal and wore it in their headbands because they thought that that also gave them the power of the deceased warrior through that headband. And the red of the cardinal's wing has been described as being red because the touch of the divine, the touch of Christ himself, and the red of the blood. So all of this goes into this. And I got to be honest with you, Tino, I didn't know any of this stuff before I started writing the book. And I started doing the research, and the book dragged me into writing more, to interview more, to try to find more people that had these experiences. And I was reaching out to people I didn't know. And I'm clicking and clacking away on the internet to try to find these folks. And I was going to alumni's to say, all right, this person went to your school or college. Do you know how I can get in touch with them? I went to various organizations, and I reached out to as many people as I could to find the folks I wanted to interview. And that's really when I heard the stories and wrote them down in a book. And I got to tell you, I'm proud of that book. It hasn't sold like my other books because I think people are a little leery of it and think it may get into things like the occult and the dark side, which it does not. I refuse
They
to
haven't
do
been awakened yet.
Pardon?
That's my belief. They haven't been awakened yet.
Yes.
Hence why the hesitation. Many millions are still brainwashed, by doctrine or, what they were brought up to believe
Yes.
as truth. So not all will be awakened like you
Yes.
and I and many other people. That's just how it is. But it's unfortunate for those individuals. I'm gonna be like straightforward about it on the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I believe in all that you have just said. I believe that the world is run by numbers. I personally believe in numerology. I've had few experience myself, and I got to ask you, when you were seeing those numbers, were you going through any form of like uncertain negative emotion at the time? Do you recall? Hence why those numbers were popping up to tell you you're going down the right path. Because those are like examples I have had where I'll be feeling something, be anxiety, or I'm overthinking something when I
Hmm.
shouldn't be. Now I just don't overthink anything anymore. I just let it be, and what's meant to be is going to be. But then a specific number will come up or pop up, or a receipt will just randomly fall on the floor where I'm standing, and I'll be like, okay, there's a number here. Then I'll also Google angel numbers, and
Yep.
it'll be like
Yep.
telling me, no, don't worry, you're okay, carry on. I'll be like, okay, and I believe in that. So, like, I just
Yeah.
wanted to ask, like, when you were going through that and the numbers kept popping up, were you going through anything, at the
I
time?
can't say that I was going through anything of a traumatic nature at all. I mean, I was writing the books at the time, and I always questioned myself: is this word choice good enough, and that kind of thing. Will this book sell? Will anybody even want to read it? But I think a lot of authors have that trepidation about their own works. And so there was nothing much more than that. And I'll give you another quick story and experience. I'm coming home from those guitar lessons one night, and this car abruptly pulls in front of me. I mean, I had to hit my brakes, and I'm saying a few words in my head that were not really kind words about that driver. And then I looked down at the license plate. Now, my name's Kevin, and very few people call me Kev. A lot of them will call me Kevin. Some of my very close friends call me Kev. There on the license plate was KEV followed by 4 numbers. Now
Yeah.
I won't tell you what those numbers were,
Yeah.
uh, but because it'll give the license plate away. And no, it wasn't 1, 2, 3, 4, but
Wow.
4 numbers, and I had to go home and look it up. And it was a positive message with just a little bit that says, keep going. It's going to be difficult, but keep going. Don't give up. That kind of a message. Was that something that was delivered to me? Or was that just a crazy driver who didn't know where he was at on the road? I'm taking it as, with the fact that it said KEV first and then those 4 numbers, that was a message meant for me.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. That
you
was
know,
definitely meant for you.
yep. So this is what I mean by it. And a lot of people, when they hear those kinds of things, they think you're crazy. They think, okay, there's just
Yeah,
another
yeah.
loony guy. I'm kind of a very conservative, down to earth. I'm not a hugely traveled person. As people describe my writing, it's easy to read. It's like I'm sitting around a campfire having a chat with you. And that's the type of guy I am. Sit down, let's have a nice little drink together and just relax and chit chat and have some fun.
Yeah. Um, our life is an illusion. Okay, TV is your reality. Like you mentioned the Oracle. Where have we seen the Oracle before? We've seen it in the Matrix. What is the Matrix about? It's about us living our life in a simulation. It all adds up. If people just pay attention, stop, like you watch like this sci-fi fantasy movie and you think,
Mm-hmm.
ah, it was great creators, put this together. No, that's your reality. This actually exists in the universe,
Yes.
you know.
Yep.
And if you
It,
still believe that the Matrix was a movie that was just a movie, it was just one of those things, there's no hope. There
yeah.
is no
Yeah.
hope, you know.
Well,
And
well,
what does the Matrix start with? Numbers,
yeah. Yeah.
numbers. It's a
Absolutely.
program. It's a program. Like
Yep. Yep. And now you're hitting on my career. I started as a computer programmer dealing with numbers. I understand how that goes, but you could also say the Matrix was, a battle of good and evil. If Keanu Reeves was wearing all white, you would really get the message of that battle. But it's the type of thing to where, again, are you going to be a believer or are you going to be a denier? And I can't, drag you to be one or the other. You have to make that decision. And then that goes to another quote that I love to give, and that is, the decisions we make dictate the life that we lead. And
Yeah.
when you think about that, be it good decisions or bad decisions, that's your life. That's what you're going to live through. So, try to make some darn good decisions. And, I hope to think I've made some good decisions. And, I'm retired, as I said. I live okay. I'm not eating steak every night, but I do have heat on the house and I do have food
Yeah.
in the cupboard. So I am doing a-okay.
You got gratitude.
Yes.
Gratitude is so powerful. You look
Yes.
at that. I mean,
Absolutely is.
grateful, if you get more, cool. If you don't, I'm grateful for what I still do have.
Yep. Yep.
Because you're grateful, to what you do have already, you will get more. But if
Yes.
you're gonna sit around and I'm gonna complain about the world and I don't have this and I don't have that, you're just digging your grave like by yourself. It's there.
Yeah. Yep.
You just need to jump in it.
Well,
You know?
the hardest thing for me right now, Kino, is I've got a birthday coming up in March. The family's saying, "What would you like for your birthday?" I got everything I want. I
Yeah.
don't really need
Yeah.
anything more. Gather here, give me a couple of scratchers for the lottery or something. Just take a chance on it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
just be here. That's enough. That's enough. And I, as I mentioned, I have an appointment at 2:15 today here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's to actually use a gift card that my kids got me last year. And I hadn't really, okay, it's nice. I got the gift card there. It's not something I was going to rush out to do. But now today, my wife and I are going to go out and we're going to utilize that.
Yeah.
And we're just going to, relish in the fact that our kids thought enough to do that and, to give us that gift. And, that's, to me, that is the realism. That is the family. That is what it's all about. Not that I got, possessions and stuff like that. I like the things I have. But if they were to be lost tomorrow, a couple of
You're
things I
so
would
cool.
miss that had
Yeah.
sentimental value. Others, no. And I feel sorry for a lot of the folks, and even a good friend of mine who lives in Pacific Palisades, California, or who did, her house and everything was taken in the fire, just destroyed. And, to think about that, but she has her life, her family's life, and she's had good friends that have helped them out. And, that's really what it's about. And you can feel sorry with her for her loss, and you can pray for her well-being. But for me, these are physical possessions, and if they go, they go.
The lesson there is don't get attached.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
get attached. It's an illusion,
Yes.
as we were
Yes.
discussing. It's an illusion. I was going to say, don't think, when you say, I already have enough and I don't need something else, is an age thing. It's a spiritual thing as well. Because when I started going down my journey as well and, self reflecting and learning more about myself, and then these talents and skills just started to come out. I also became the same, I could still, go visit my parents, and then I'll go to the shopping center, for example, with my mother, and you're always seen as the baby, you know.
Hmm.
So she'll be like, take something, I'll buy it for you. And I'm like, no, I don't need it,
Yes.
So I'm doing it at my age as well. I don't need it, you
Right.
know. Like other people out there will like just jump at the opportunity,
Yeah.
getting this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
nah, it's cool,
I,
you know.
I'd rather in those cases, Kino, you want to get me something? Give me a cup of coffee. Let's sit down and have a talk.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and just do that, or let's just have a cup of coffee, sit on the bench, and watch people go by.
Let's do something that's going to be life changing, you know, especially be changing someone else's life.
Yes.
Let's have those conversations. Let's talk about, global matters. Let's talk
Yep.
about the stuff that really matters most. I'm sure you also get irritated if you sit down with a group of people and they're talking about, their cars and where they're going on holiday and, how their boss sucks. And I'm like,
Ah,
check
yeah.
another time, check a,
The
yeah.
negativity. The
Yeah,
negativity.
just all negative.
Yes.
And I'm
Yes.
like, no, I want to have conversations that matter. Let's have
Yep.
conversations that really matter. That's going to impact my life. That's going to impact your life. That's going to impact someone else's life. Those are the type of conversations I want to have.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. But
So,
if they do, Kino, want to talk about the '60s era GTO, then I'll sit down and talk with them. And that's a car of my era that I really love the style of.
thanks for filling us in with that. So, okay, so I know you got an appointment at 2:30. So what that gives you about like not much time, I guess,
I'm not sure what
Uh,
time it is right now.
yeah. I think we passed over an hour. So that should be about like 10 past 1 your side.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean you got upcoming books that's on the way, one is
Yes.
historical and one is touching on marketing. Do you want to touch on that? Give us a
Yep.
preview of what's to come. Why marketing? That's what I want to ask.
Okay. Give me just one quick second. I have a little beverage refrigerator in my office. It just kicked on. Let me shut it off so the
Okay, no
noise
problem.
doesn't bother.
No problem.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Yeah, the two books I've got coming up. There's one that is a historical fiction, and it does involve a time machine, but it's also going to take you to places where they're very historical in nature. And I won't go too much further than that in that book. The history is what's taken me the longest to make sure it's factual, and I cite all my sources. But it's going to be a fun book, and it's going to be one that I'm hoping will reach many different generations of people. I would say probably from around 10 to 12 years all the way up to 99. I want it to be
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
broad in
Yeah.
acceptance. The second book I'm writing, and in fact, I'm actually writing that a lot quicker than the first one, is on marketing for self-publishers, but not marketing where it's necessarily a cost aspect. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of people out there that I go to their live events online. There's actually a conference that will be held in Vegas this year called Author Nation. I'll be going to that. So there's a lot of these places where you can go to and you can hear the speakers and take the trainings. But a lot of that comes down to, okay, now that you've taken the training, we want you to spend X amount of dollars here and we'll give you coaching. Or, even to the point of an Amazon ad, we'll help you place it for X amount of dollars. And oh, by the way, it's going to cost you money too to place the ad on Amazon.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of the writers out there, the independent writers, they struggle to get their first book out. And after you pay for things like editors and the book cover design and to get your copyright and things along those lines, I mean, you could be into the book $1,500, $2,000, $10,000 to $12,000, and now you're hoping that the people will find and discover you out there on the various different book ordering platforms. Well, my book it came out of a list that I had, and I put together for myself 19 different ways for no cost to extremely low cost to get your book known out there. Everything from social medias to podcasts to there's just so much. Local newspapers, local medias. Print is not dead. It is dying, but it's not entirely dead. And they need articles and stuff. So you can approach them. And I give them tips on how to do it. Something as simple. And I started off in the book with something as simple as your email. Make sure your signature line has, if you have a website, put your website there. Put the name of your books there. Now, I have my books spread very wide. And what I mean by that, they're on various different platforms. It could be on Amazon, Drafted Digital, Ingram Spark. I found the book on Goodreads and Walmart.com, Target.com. And on and on and on. Once you do wide distribution, they're sent out by these different distributors. And therefore, because of that, I don't have one single link. I am looking at something called a universal book link and seeing if I might be able to utilize that. But instead, what I do is I try to drive the people towards the website that I own. And there I have links to the books for sale. But if they do a simple search on the titles or my name, they'll be able to find the books out there on many, many platforms. But what I want to do for the individual, the indie writer, the independent writer, is I want to give them some of these techniques free. Yeah, you might have to pay for the book, but I'm going to make that as cheap as I can, because I don't want them to struggle. But what I want them to do is essentially play with the house's money. And what I mean by that is let them do these things for free, get some revenues coming in, then use that revenue to go and further their, the actual expense side of the marketing, because marketing is a huge area for independent authors. I often talk to people and say, look, writing the book is just 50% of the job. You got that other 50% out there, and you got to market the heck out of that.
I think it's more than that. Writing the book for me is like 20%. It's the same with music. It counts for 20%, the 80-20 rule. 80% is, being an entrepreneur now, understanding how the business works. How am I going to monetize my work?
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. And that's it. And there's many, many ways to do that. I often tell people, and this is a quote I picked up years ago, if you don't ask, the answer is always no.
Yeah.
So why not ask and take the chance?
Ask and you shall receive.
There you go. There you go. And yes, sometimes the answer will be no. I've been turned down on podcasts. I've been turned down for radio shows and stuff like that. But I've also been accepted. And I had mentioned in an email to you, one of your podcasts, you had John Goodwin on.
Yes.
And John was talking about authors and the rejections and stuff like that. And you were wondering, and you said, wait, I wonder how many times J.K. Rowling was rejected before Harry Potter took off. And she was rejected 12 times. Yeah, 12. And then I looked up, just did a simple search online. Tell me other authors who have been rejected. Dr. Seuss, Peggy Rowe, which a lot of people in the US know, and I think she's growing in the world. Mike Rowe, who does Dirty Jobs, is her son. Peggy had written all her life. She was a school teacher, and she had written all of her life, sent in manuscripts, rejected, rejected, rejected. And finally, when she wrote a story that her son put on his podcast and it took off, that's when the publishers came and said, "Oh, you didn't tell me your mom could write." She's been rejected all over. James Baldwin, Agatha Christie, Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup for the Soul. 134 rejections. These things go on and on. E.E. Cummings, 14. Frank Herbert, who wrote Dune, 20 rejections. And this one I was surprised by. Anne Frank's Diary was rejected 15 times. Now, when you think about these and what they went on to become, that's the other thing. Authors do not give up. It could just be right around the corner. Take some of the methods that I will be, telling you about. And by the way, I poke the bear every once in a while on my website and put one of these freebies out there. And, people can go to it and see them there. But I decided after having my list that I was going to write this book. And it's not going to be a long book, maybe 120 pages, let's say, and let that go out there. And if I do the ebook from it and keep that down in, the less than $3 mark, that's a very, very low price to pay to get some ideas that might bring you a lot of revenue. Yeah, so that's the book that I'm writing along with the fictional history one too.
Yeah, I mean, you're entering a market that really needs it.
Yes.
Okay? And not just for independent authors, but independent anybody in the creative space at the moment. That's where they are battling the most. And, especially, like for myself personally, where I focus my work is with the lower class and the middle class within the creator economy, because they can't afford, online tools, online education, or, the basics of stable network or a laptop. So, I mean, to spend less than $3 for content such as yours, I mean, it's well worth it, because you want to get this book out there. You don't know how, you don't have the capital. Here it is, here's Kevin Hall. He's giving it to you for less than $3. And let's be honest, you don't want to make that small investment in yourself now. And this is to all the independent creatives listening to the show. Then you might as well stop, because it's going to require something. I understand that all of us don't have the same, financial means and so on. But you just need to be diverse now with your thinking. Innovate. Where can I get it? Because, Kevin, it wasn't all easy for us as well. We had to make certain sacrifices. We had to practice humility. Okay. And I see a lot of these guys out there, even ladies as well, that will come up with every excuse in the book not to invest in their work. But yet when it comes to the weekend, we out with our friends, we partying, we buying new clothes. No, now you need to practice humility.
Yes.
Okay. And start adding, you need to start adding it up as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes we go to the shop, we go to the mall, and we see some things on special. Okay. And let me just buy this. But if you add up how much you're spending that small amount, because it's so low, let's just say, I'm going to use this $1 as an example. $1 a year, $1 there, the next week $1 a year, $1 a year, the next week $1 a year. Add up all those dollars per year. You'd be surprised what that amount comes to.
Oh, absolutely. Just think of, a cup of coffee a day. That could be, anything from $1 at a McDonald's to, $7, $10 at a Starbucks. If you add that up every day over a month, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. It is. So I'm proud of what you're doing. It's needed. It's needed.
Yes.
Like, I will actually get a copy myself, because, it's, as I said, it's going to be so diverse, your book, in all areas. Why I started getting into having authors on the show, because there wasn't a big difference, between the music scene and then the writing scene.
Yes.
And as I spoke to authors, again and again, and we went into the challenges, that they face and what, creatives are facing today. And those are the same challenges that independent artists are facing today, independent
Yes.
labels are facing today.
Yes.
So when it comes to
Yes.
capital and when it comes to branding and when it comes to marketing, same challenges. So you're going into a market that needs your work. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome, and I hope it will resonate with folks. I'll give them one more tip right now before we shut this down, and that is think about your high school and college alumni. My
Yes.
college puts out an alumni newsletter. Guess what I did? I reached out to them. I've had 2 articles placed in there talking about me and talking about the books. So that was all free to me. All it took
Yeah.
was an email, So,
A simple email. All it takes is a simple email. I mean, we have connected because you sent me a DM, on
mhm.
Facebook, and even though I was like delayed because I was like so caught up, because now routing through agents. Like, okay, no, but I'm going to get back to Kevin. I'm going to get back to Kevin. But look, it happens, and look
Yes.
where we are
It,
now.
and I
You know.
appreciate it, Kino, a lot. And, I've enjoyed this conversation. If we want to get together again and have me back and have another one, I'm all for that. I'll let you know when the
Definitely.
books come out for sure.
Yeah, yeah. No, I am putting a list together, from when was it? About like Q3 of last year, when the podcast evolved and then agents started to reach out to me. And that's when I started with these chats. I don't like to call it interviews because we're both learning from each other and it's like a two-way thing going on here.
Hmm.
But I am going to be doing follow-ups also, people want that. Creators from all ends, they want that because they release a new work and like, okay, let's
Yeah.
chat about that when that happens. One thing I want to leave you with. So I co-host another podcast which is called Talking Back to Suicide, and I co-hosted with a lady that's out in Oregon in the US. She's a retired psychiatrist. She was actually one of my first guests on the show. So what you mentioned about the suicide rate when it comes to guns, I would love to invite you on that podcast to go deeper into that conversation because now your message on those stats, is going to get now a bigger reach, further reach now, because the podcast is dedicated. Like as you said, it's something that we need to spend a lot more time and energy on because 71% is a high number. It's a really
Yes.
high number. So what are we
Yes.
doing about that? And that is how this podcast has come along. The Talking Back to Search podcast is what can we do about it in our own personal capacity with this community that we have. So I would love to invite you on to that if you
Okay.
don't mind. So
No,
I'll
just
send out.
reach out. I'm fine. Like I said, I'm retired and I love to do this.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll just send an email, to you, and I have her on it, and then she will say, okay, when's the next available dates? You'll give a thumbs up, and let's do it.
All right, that sounds fabulous, Kino. And
Yeah, let's
I
start this.
really thank you for today. I do have to start winding it down because I do have to get ready and then leave for the appointment here. But I
I hope it's
really
still valid. Hope the appointment is still valid. Hope you check that.
well, as of yesterday, they sent me the reminder, so we're still good to go.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I was just thinking, when you were mentioning about the theater in your hometown, but then afterwards, as you continued to talk, you were talking about no, you actually met your wife now in another
Mhm.
state. I was going to ask you, was your first love in the theater? That old school hometown stories, love stories.
Yeah, but and we could talk about that in more detail. But yeah, I did have a girlfriend in my hometown before I moved to Minnesota, and that was hard because we just started to become real good friends. I mean, to the point of holding hands, kind of thing. I mean, what did a naive 13-year-old boy of the '70s really know? But that was really the first one, and a lot of memories of that.
I'm sure there is. Well, Kevin, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for sharing your love and your support, and your work, and continue doing what you're doing. And I love that you're building a legacy that's going to help other independent authors. up and
Yeah,
coming.
absolutely. Kino, thank you very much. I appreciate
It's a
it. And
pleasure.
like I said, looking forward to having a chat with you at another time.
Yes, definitely. Enjoy your outing with your wife.
All right, you take care.
All right, bye.
Bye bye now.